Hello and welcome to Chapter 5 review. In this lesson, we will cover thought groups and glides. I am loosely translating thought groups as Goku no Matamari. Not exactly the same idea, but they're pretty close. We'll also be learning something called glides in this lesson. So first, what are thought groups? I'm going to say all of this. I'm going to read this to you. And I want you to listen to how I say all of the sentences. And you're going to notice that sometimes I stop. But for now, just listen to how I say these things. Ready? Here we go. Good English speakers organize their speech into thought groups. They speak thought by thought. They do not speak word by word. The division of thought groups can change the meaning of the sentence. For example, the panda shoots and leaves, and the panda eats, shoots, and leaves mean different things. So, for example, the panda eats, shoots, and leaves means the panda bear eats bamboo for food. The panda eats, shoots, and leaves means the panda has a gun and likes to shoot people, and then leaves the premises. This is the idea. I want you to know that how I say these things, though, was determined slightly by how many thought groups was in the sentence. So, for example, this is one thought group. This is one utterance. This is one stretch of talk. Here we have a different thought group. Grammatically, it's all one sentence, but the way I said it split it into something else. This is called a thought group. This is one stretch of talk, one utterance. Now, I want you to know that there's something similar happens in Japanese as well. So you probably learned this in high school. ここでは履物を脱いでください and ここで履物を脱いでください. They mean different things, even though the letters in each sentence are exactly the same. The thing that makes these things different, the thing that differentiates the meaning, is the thought groups. How I said the sentence, where I start and where I end. What I say determines the thought groups, and that in turn determines the meaning, or at least affects it. So let me give you an example of thought groups, because this is somewhat a nebulous concept. I'm going to say this, and I'll say it with one thought group or two thought groups. If I do that, the meaning will change. So for example, if I say it with one thought group, 5-week-long vacations, 5-week-long vacations, one thought group. If I say that, it means fukusu no 5週間分の休み. But if I say the same little phrase with two thought groups, the meaning changes a little. If I say that, the meaning changes to this. So, for example, 5-week-long vacations. 5-week-long vacations. So, I'm going to read the rest of these phrases to you, and I want you to use your fingers to show me which one you heard. So, for example, I'm going to read this. If I say 5-week-long vacations, 5-week-long vacations, there's one thought group, so hold up one finger. But if I say 5-week-long vacations, 5-week-long vacations, there's two thought groups, so hold up two fingers. Ready? Here we go. Number one, 5-week-long vacations. 5-week-long vacations. Number two, 6-hour-long test. 6-hour-long test. Two thought groups. 6-hour-long test. One thought group. Now next, number three. Again, depending on how many thought groups I say the phrase with, the meaning changes slightly. Ready? 28-cent stamps. 28-cent stamps. 28-cent stamps. One thought group. 28-cent stamps. 28-cent stamps. Two thought groups. The same principle can apply to entire sentences and change the meaning accordingly. So, one more time. How many thought groups are in my utterance? How many thought groups are in my talk? Ready? I don't know George. I don't know George. I don't know George. One thought group. And when I say this sentence like that, it means, basically it means this here. But if I say, I don't know George, I don't know George, then the meaning changes slightly and it means this. Let's go to number 5, another example of pretty much the same thing. One sentence, in this case a question, that has its meaning altered by the number of thought groups. So, for example, who's cheating, Julia? Who's cheating, Julia? Who's cheating, Julia? 2 thought groups. So in this case, when you say, who's cheating, Julia, it actually means this. But if you say, who's cheating, Julia? Who's cheating, Julia? Who's cheating, Julia? It's one thought group, so it means this instead. Now, let me give you a definition of thought groups, or rather how to determine if there's a thought group at all. Here's what I want you to know. The end of a thought group is usually indicated by a short pause. Also, the pitch drops. The last syllable tends to get a little longer in thought groups. And there's a limit. Thought groups can't be as big as you would like. In general, this is a very general rule, but I would say they're about 5 to 7 words in length, and there is an individual difference here, so every person can have bigger or smaller thought groups. But the important thing I want you to know about this is that thought groups are the sentences of speech. If sentences are the basic construction unit of writing, thought groups are the basic construction unit of speech. So, let's move on. We're going to skip number 4, and we're going to go right down to the bottom, number 5, on page 61. This is one very, very quick thing I want you to know, that in English, in fact in all languages, there are sounds that are loud. So in English, these ones are A, E, I, O, U. And these represent a lot of vowel sounds, 15 in fact in English. But these sounds are the vowels and they're louder than the other ones. So we use these sounds to call out to someone a distance away because they're loud sounds. We don't use softer sounds, lower sounds like z to call out to lower people far away from us because they're not very loud. What I want you to remember is this. Vowels are loud. Vowels are loud. Please remember that. And the last thing in this chapter are glides. Now, this is something that happens inside of a thought group. If the same pattern is between thought groups, nothing happens. But inside of a thought group, this will start to happen. When a vowel A is next to another vowel, in between them, some sound appears. So let's try to figure out what this is. First, say A, and then say and then say them together closely. So A, A, A. Now, say them together. So say A, and then start saying with no space between them. Can you hear what happens? When you do that, a different sound is going to appear. Can you hear it? Here we go. I hope you hear that Y appears between them. This is a glide. And the same thing will happen with all of these vowels. So, E, 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 a Y sound appears there. The same thing will happen with I as well. So, I, and here a Y appears. So this is what happens. These are called Y glides. But when the vowels A, E, I are followed by another vowel, the sound Y appears between them. This only happens inside thought groups, so keep this in mind. Let me give you an example of how this works. This happens in conversation quite a bit, even though people usually don't know they're actually doing this. Here's the important part. We have two vowels next to each other. The he in the E in he here and next to another vowel. There will be a Y here. So for example, he ate it, he ate it, he ate it, he ate it, he ate it. So he ate it becomes he ate it, he ate it, he ate it, he ate it. This is what happens in fast English. Now, the next thing that happens is this. Here, the last sound in stay is A. There's a Y there, but the sound is A, and it's next to another vowel, an sound. So I often stay ya weak there. I often stay ya weak there. Ya, ya, ya. I often stay ya weak there. And this happens in fast English a lot inside of a thought group. The same thing happens with these two sounds, although the thing that appears between the vowels is a different sound. So go ahead and say this. So this is O, O, and then right next to it say So for example, O, 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 So say them close together fast. Start saying O and then switch to without stopping. So O, 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 O. I hope you notice that a W appears here. It's not O, it's O, O. A W sound is appearing there. The same thing will happen with this. U and another vowel. So U, you, you. And this is another glide. What I want you to know is that when the sounds O and U are followed by another vowel, the sound W appears between them. This only happens inside thought groups. So let me give you an example of how this works. So we have these two examples, and here we have two vowels next to each other. The last sound in how is ow. So here the W and the O are next to each other. So how old are you? How old are you? How old are you? And we have this. The last sound in U is U, of course. And, oh, sorry, that's not it. Here we have a vowel, two vowels next to each other. The last sound in go is O, and it's next to the vowel in on. So go on, go on, go on, go on. So not go on, but go on, go on, go on. That's the end of this chapter. Good luck on the quiz.